Welcome back to another episode of Rob Sports Center. As you can see by the title and by the thumbnail, today we're going to be taking a look at some film on George Pickens. So I'm interested to see. So for the Cowboy fans who may not have had a chance to look at him into detail, this video is for y'all so y'all can see what y'all got coming y'all way. So let's go ahead and get straight into this video. So the very first play, you got a 3rd and 12. And you see that George Pickens just really ran simply an out route. And you see that, not trying to be funny, but you look at who's throwing the ball to him, and that's Justin Fields. And you know that he had a lot of inconsistency throughout this year at quarterback. At first they started out with Justin Fields at the beginning of the year, and then they eventually switched to Russell Wilson. Obviously, Russell Wilson is a much accurate quarterback than Justin Fields, so you got to realize that a lot of the passes that was probably being thrown to him, he had to kind of be able to get used to or be good at being able to adjust to poorly thrown balls such as this one right here. So you're looking at that's an out route. Like I always say, an out route is one of the hardest balls to throw just because if you underthrow it more times than not, that's going to result in an interception because most defenders know that, okay, if he's throwing an out route, I got the sideline really acting as a defender as well. So either you're going to throw the ball perfectly to where I can't pick it off and the receiver catch it, but his momentum is going to take him out of bounds because of where you have to throw the ball. Or if you do underthrow the ball, I'm going to jump it because guess what? 9 times out of 10, I'm going to intercept it. And if I don't intercept it and I misjudge it, you're still going to go out of bounds and I got help over the top. So that's one of the hardest passes to throw, especially in a 3rd and 12 situation. So you see right here, George Pickens had a step on both of the defenders. Justin Fields just kind of did I ain't gonna say a horrible job. He could have been a little bit more accurate. I mean, it wasn't that horrible of a pass because you're looking at it, the DBs wouldn't have been able to undercut it, but you kind of would have liked to see him kind of lead it out a little bit more because it would have made getting that first down so much easier. I do believe that he was able to secure the catch and get the first down to to move the sticks, but it could have been a tad bit easier. But like I say, once again, when we talk about offensive players or players, period, what can you do on your own, right? When the ball isn't thrown idealistic, can you make those adjustments to be able to catch the ball in those unidealistic situations? And right here, you see that George Pickens has the ability to be able to do that. So I would assume plays like this are kind of the plays that he has to kind of try to fix. And I think this is some of the plays like this are what kind of led to Pittsburgh just kind of just saying, man, you know what, we're done with you. So you got to kind of understand the situations, right? Down in distance, you just got to understand the situation. You're going into halftime, you're down, you want to try to put up some points, and you got the opportunity to put up some points. So with this ball right here, once you caught it, you should have been going out of bounds because I think they ended up with just 1 second left on the clock. So I believe they were able to get a field goal going into half. But I'm just saying, like, let's get it. I get it that you're trying to possibly make a play because obviously you make the first guy miss, but then you got a guy that's pursuing on the back end that could have possibly either punched the ball out or stripped the ball because your focus was so much more right here. And he did get eyes back to kind of see, but that's just one of those situations where, man, you just want to, live to fight another day. You know what I mean? Get the ball, get out of bounds, and just and allow our field goal to let our field goal kicker to put up 3 points going into half, where we can kind of get a reset and come back and attack it with more of a clear idea of what it is we want to do. But we're going to just kind of touch on the route, man. The route was a phenomenal route. I mean, obviously, you see it was zone coverage, the corner. And this is my thing, too, is zone coverage. I do believe that if you're going to play up, especially in zone, because it's not necessarily dictated on you guarding a man, I would have liked to see you get physical with just trying to slow down the timing of the route. So that's also one of those down and distance things for a corner as well, to know that, okay, I want to try to minimize. You give George Pickens a free release now. Look at, he's coming downhill with a full head of steam, and that's one of the reasons why he was able to get Bates on that play right there, because Bates was thinking that he was going to be probably running a post route, and he just flipped it into running a corner. And then you see, look at Bates have the speed turn just to be able to try to stay over the top and to be able to stay in position on him. But just a phenomenal route. Like I said, just the art of deception, getting that free release, stemming upfield, and kind of just making him believe based off of where you were stemming that it was going to be a post route, and then just simply bouncing it back outside for a corner route, and just being able to, get the catch and get your feet in bounds. But in that situation, man, we would like to see you get out of bounds, Pickens. Give us a chance to, put up some points going into half. All right, so you see on this play right here, you got Pickens lined up on the outside the numbers matched up on number 24. And, man, number 24 has been ending up on a lot of people's highlight reels. I think the last highlight video I did, or the last film study video I did, was with T. Higgins, and I think he was ending up on T. Higgins' highlight reels a couple times too. But he just really runs a simple route, just really just a 9 route, a go route. He doesn't really do nothing specific in terms of the release. He just kind of is in his wide receiver stance. He squares up, obviously, and kind of just give a nudge to the outside and kind of just stem straight up the field. So he kind of, based off of a leverage standpoint, he had already had the cornerback beat. Now, goes back to what I was saying as well. For one, what are two things that I always talk about whenever we're studying film on receivers, especially for my younger guys? I always talk about making moves when you're coming off the line, giving your move. Make sure that you're vertically attacking to threaten the space between you and the DB. And two, I always say, well, I've just started saying now, use your hands for more than catching. Meaning that if a corner is trying to get physical and put his hands on you, utilize your hands to hit his hands down. And one of the things that I'm noticing too, if you ever watch and just kind of pay attention, notice that whenever the corner is trying to get his hands on the receiver, the whole objective is to slow down, to throw off the timing, because everything is timing based, right? So the whole objective is to slow down the receiver. So if you notice, if you're able to cleanly get your hands on the receiver, obviously you're going to slow him down, right? So as a receiver, if your objective is to prevent him from getting his hands on you to slow you down, so you want to utilize your hands to be able to try to hit his hands down as well. And if you notice that from a receiver standpoint, whenever they're active with their hands and they're hitting down the defensive back hands and preventing them from being able to get their hands on them, notice that how it kind of slows down the cornerbacks, the defensive backs momentum. If you ever pay attention, like kind of look at it right here, he already kind of had him beat off of leverage alone. But then when he was utilizing the hand fighting, it kind of allows him to kind of be able to stack the stack the corner. And then too, if you notice too, it kind of looked like by them hand fighting the way that they were, he was able to kind of utilize his body to kind of, give a little nudge and try to create that little small space, that little small separation to be able to get the pass off. Obviously Justin Fields kind of, threw the ball. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that it was a horribly thrown ball. Obviously, I do believe it could have been better, but to a degree, based off of the position of Pickens, I think his whole objective, because you didn't have a safety to worry about, was just kind of trying not to put it, because like the corner was on his outside shoulder. So idealistically, you always hear me talk about throwing to the outside shoulder, but if the corner's on the outside shoulder, then the chances of him breaking that pass up becomes so much greater. So his whole objective was, okay, I'm gonna put it on the inside shoulder by him being on the outside, and it kind of led to it looking like it was a horribly thrown ball, but it wasn't as bad of a ball. But Pickens just does another good job at being able to adjust and be able to, come up with the catch on this one-on-one situation. So right here, you got Pickens lined up in the slot. And like I said, man, in today's game, the game has changed so much that where, normally like your dominant outside guys such as Pickens normally would have just probably been an outside the numbers receiver, just really lining up on the outside. But now, you're seeing that these guys can line up on the outside. These guys can line up on the inside. These guys can line up on the field side, the boundary side. It doesn't really matter. And obviously, too, dealing with a team like Pittsburgh, that really Pickens is really their strongest receiving option. Obviously, more teams defensive wise are going to come into the game and say, we're going to take Pickens out of the equation and somebody else is going to have to beat us. And I don't know they're going to have to beat us. They're going to show us that they can beat us consistently before we adjust anything. Other than that, we're just going to take Pickens out of the game. And that's why I say I think that that's going to be an added benefit for him and for CD Lamb now, because it's no double teaming one, because if you double team one, the other will kill you. So it kind of is going to open it up for the both of them. But right here, he does kind of like a little scramble drill. Justin Field rolls out the pocket, obviously, because the pressure probably got to him, or just because he was just a little uneasy and wasn't comfortable staying in the pocket. So he rolls out. Pickens does a good job at being able to get his eyes back to the backfield and realize that his quarterback is maneuvering, and just kind of keeps working across the field to be able to create a throwing lane for Justin Fields right here. And like I said, we know that Dak is a quarterback who can move, who can be mobile, who can get out of the pocket too. So that also is an added benefit. Having a receiver who knows how to play off script like that would be a strong suit for the Cowboys as well. I know going back and watching film on this play right here, Justin Fields probably hate that he missed this option with the running back releasing out the backfield, man, because that was a touchdown. And you even see the running back had his hands up. But, man, this is a Pickens film study video. But I know he wished they had that one back. So you got a guy to have a situation. You got a 3rd and 1. And Justin Fields looked like he was originally probably going to try to maybe step up and try to throw down the field or even possibly run. Once again, Pickens does a good job at just being able to get his eyes to the backfield and looking at the quarterback and just seeing what the quarterback is doing. So right here, it's like he kind of ran. I'm not quite sure if he was running a stop and go where he was going to cut in like he was gonna run a slant, stop, and bounce it back outside, or was he just running or was he just seeing that Justin Fields was maneuvering in the pocket and just decided to work back outside towards out of bounds where it was more space at? Regardless of the reason of it, he did. Justin Fields was able to find him, and he was able to, make a little bit more something happen after the yard, with yards after the catch. Like I said, what can you do by yourself? What can you do on your own? Once you complete the pass, what are you able to do? Do you go down to the ground immediately, or are you able to fight for yards? And he does a good job at just being able to fight for yards. Now, granted, I will say that you would like to see him in a lot of instances probably hold that ball a little bit tighter, just because you never know who's coming from behind you, and just noticing how loosely he is with the ball, it'll give defenders that's in a trail position a chance to be able to either come and strip it from behind, or even guys that's coming up forward to just come in and kind of punch and just try to dislodge that ball. So you would like to see him kind of hold it a little bit more high and tight in those situations. All right, so right here you have a 2nd and 8. You got Pickens, who's lined up in a tighter split. It looked like Pittsburgh probably looked like they ran a lot of bunch formations, just kind of having things a little bit more compressed, probably trying to cause confusion and get mismatches and things of that nature. So right here, he just pretty much, it looked like he probably runs a post route. And I seen that they were saying that at one point throughout the season last year that Pickens might have ran deep routes. It might have been only one person, and that was Tyreek Hill, who ran more vertical routes than he did. So right here, you see that ability once again to be able to blow the top off of a defense. And once again, this is what I talk about in terms of ball placement and the inconsistency he had at quarterback, because this was a touchdown. If he's able to lead that ball and put the ball out there, Pickens is able to run up under that for a touchdown. Because even if you look at when he throw it right here, you got the corner who really was able, almost close to being able to jump up there and get his hand to be able to disrupt that pass. And when you're looking at the positioning of Pickens, you see that he was ahead of the defender. So, if he put that ball aimed towards the back corner of the end zone, that allows for Pickens to be able to run up under that for an easy touchdown. So those are one of the factors that he may have now with Dak Prescott being able to consistently get those type of balls out there to him, to potentially capitalize on, to maximize on the opportunity you have on that play. So on this play right here, it shows you why adding Pickens to the Cowboys is also going to be a good thing, because, well, like what I said earlier, with having Pickens and CD on the same team, now they both have the luxury of not having to worry about being double teamed on every single play. And I'm going to show you why. So just think about this play right here on the outside. You got Pickens on the outside with a one-on-one matchup. He didn't do nothing special in terms of his release. He didn't do nothing special in terms of his speed of just being able to separate away from the DB. The DB actually does a very good job at being able to play this. You see that he has his eyes on Russell Wilson. Once he realizes that Pickens is stemming up the field vertically, and he realizes that Russell Wilson's probably finna get ready to commit to throw that ball. He kind of is able to turn around and lock his eyes on Pickens. So he plays this ball fairly well. But when you have a quarterback that can, for one, get the ball out there and give the receiver a fighting chance at being able to come down with it, it increases the chances that you would have success with that. So really, that's all it really was him, Russell Wilson. We've seen him do that throughout his entire career, just being able to put those rainbow type balls up there, and just let Pickens go up there, let Pickens be able to just make a play. Like I said, this is phenomenal coverage. He just did a good job at once again utilizing his hands, utilizing his hands to kind of fight with the corner, to kind of put himself in good positioning to be able to come up with the catch. So that's the value that bringing a player like Pickens over to the Cowboys, it brings to that team, to that offense. So right here we got a red area possession, which is crazy because majority of the passes we've seen have been passes down the field. So, we haven't really just seen him operating in the red area so far as we've been breaking down film. So right here we do finally got a red area possession. You got a one-on-one matchup on the outside. And what did I say in the previous clip? When you bring that asset to the Cowboys now, to where you can create these possible one-on-one matchups because you can't really double team, now they get a little bit more freedom. They get a little bit more freedom with their play calling now, because they don't have to worry about teams playing them in certain defenses based off of the idea of taking CeeDee Lamb out of the game. Now that you have George Pickens over, now it creates more defenses have to respect that much more now, to where they can't just play conservative efforts to take either or out the game. So right here, you just get a one-on-one matchup on the outside, and Russell Wilson once again just does a phenomenal job of just putting the ball out there. Pickens does a good job of just being able to track the ball and be able to go get it. Honestly, just like we said again, just utilizing his hands with the hand fighting situation with number 26. He tried to get a little physical with him right here. Pickens just does a good job at kind of being able to, kind of knock his hands down. Now, you see right there, now he kind of did, not a lot, but he kind of did, extend his arms to not necessarily push off, but to just be able to create that separation. But to me, I think that when it's in a hand fighting situation like that, I think that should just be played out the way that it did, and it shouldn't be no call because they're both actively engaging with each other. So he does a good job at just being able to kind of extend that arm to push him, just to kind of, push him off just a tad bit to create just a little bit more separation for him to be able to make the catch. All right, so we gotta have a situation. We got a 3rd and 7. You got them on a bunch look. You got Pickens stacked up over there on the bunch side with 3 receivers. And they just end up getting another one-on-one matchup. Like I said, it looks like a lot of what Pittsburgh ran formation-wise was bunch sets or just tighter splits with the receivers. Like I said, for a numerous amount of reasons. One of them could be to create mismatches. And if communication isn't proper on the defensive side, then you can create some favorable mismatches for the offense. So right here, they end up getting another one-on-one matchup with Pickens on the outside. And this is just right here, honestly, man, it was just good ball concentration and just good effort to, not give up on a play and fight all the way through the end. The ball was kind of slightly underthrown and it looked like it hit the DB on the back of his helmet or either his shoulder pads. Let's take another look at it. Yeah, so it hit him like right there at the shoulder pads. And really, it's so crazy too, though, man, because the corner really did a darn good job at kind of really, and I'm not quite even sure if it was intentional or was it just luck, but he did a good job at just being able to get his arm in there. Well, actually, I wouldn't even say that that's luck because that's the art that the DBs practice is to, in those situations where you can't get your head back around, look at the receiver's hands and fight through the receiver's hands. So I would take that back. That was not luck. That was actually, that actually is a skill that DBs practice. But like I said, Pickens just did a good job at, just being able to concentrate on it and just having the ball skills and the ball concentration to be able to come up with the catch. But then mainly for me, too, just not giving up on that play. So right here on this play, you got Pickens lined up in a tighter split. So normally we've seen him lined up in tight splits, but he's kind of lined up in a much tighter splits. This time he's really pretty much in the inside the numbers. And like I said, man, kind of from a cornerback's perspective, like I said, I like to teach and I like to be able to teach, for the younger corners and for the younger receivers, so that's the benefit. I get to teach from both sides doing these videos. So for my younger corners, when you're looking at it and you're kind of judging what the receiver is trying to do based off of splits. Normally, when you see a receiver lined up in a much tighter split, meaning that they're much closer to the offensive line, then more times than not, they're trying to create space to be able to get outside, kind of similar to what Pickens did on this route right here. And it really just looked like a fade route. At first, it kind of looked like a corner, but it really just looked like a fade route. And this was just a very perfectly thrown pass by Russell Wilson. When I say perfectly, I mean this was a thread the needle type of pass, ironically, against the Giants, who Russell Wilson is playing for this year. But once again, man, Pickens just does a good job at just being able to track the ball. Russell Wilson puts the ball on his outside shoulder to protect him from the upcoming safety that's coming over the top. And Pickens just does a good job at being able to secure the catch and be able to keep both feet in bounds and really being able to just run a little bit more after that as well, because I thought he was going to be able to score a touchdown. All right, so right here we got another red area possession. Once again, you got Pickens lined up in a tighter split. And they look like that's kind of been the basis of his routes. Like I said in the early on in the video, they was saying that there was only one receiver that ran more go routes, 9 routes than Pickens, or even just deep routes down the field, and that was Tyreek Hill. So that kind of gives you a basis of what one of the things that Pickens is very good at, and one of the things he brings to the table for the Dallas Cowboys as well. So right here you have him lined up on the slot, and he just kind of runs a fade route. And once again, he does a good job at attacking the defensive backs and, kind of just giving them a nudge to the inside. Like I said, football is a game of inches, man, a lot of times, right? So as a receiver, whenever you just do a simple little nudge, it ain't got to be a hard sell. It could be a simple little, kind of just shift towards the inside to try to get that corner to slide just a tad bit, because it's almost just a natural instinct just to react, just because you're trying to stay over the top and you're trying to stay locked in or squared over your the receiver as long as you can. You don't want to open up your hips because now he puts you in a bad position, especially if he goes and does a double move. So just being able to create just that small little separation with that little small nudge is always an added benefit. So he does that, and then he just stems it out for a fade route, kind of just running towards the back pylon. And when you got George Pickens, like we've seen, that a lot of times, man, he's one of those guys that you just say, man, forget it, he's down there somewhere, and you just throw the ball up, and he just does a good job at just being able to adjust to however it is you throw the ball, unless you just severely overthrow it or underthrow it. So right here, he makes another spectacular catch, just falling backwards, being able to kind of use that long frame and extend his arms and being able to secure a touchdown catch. So you got Pickens lined up on the outside right here. And once again, man, he just pretty much runs a vertical route, a 9 route. He's doing a good job at utilizing his hands to try to hand fight with the corner. The corner's trying to get his hands on him. Pickens isn't allowing for him to do that. He's constantly swiping his hands down. Like I said, man, from me noticing what I'm noticing, that as a receiver, whenever you're able to prevent a corner from getting his hands on you, it kind of slows down his momentum, and it allows for you to potentially be able to stack him, just like we've seen so far from Pickens, just like right here. But once again, man, this is just another good job at Russell Wilson. Like I say, I would say at the beginning of the season, he had inconsistencies there at quarterback with Justin Fields. When Russell Wilson came along, that's when he finally kind of started to get his consistency. And you just see right here, man, Russell Wilson just does a good job at being able to put the ball out there. The corner turns around and is able to get up to locate the ball, but the ball was just placed in a perfect situation. Now, granted, Pickens is a longer receiver, a much taller receiver, so his catch radius is a little bit, bigger than the average receiver because of his height. So when you have a receiver that has that type of range, then you can put the ball in a lot of places where typically the average receiver or the average DB probably wouldn't be able to get to, just because of that lack of length. And that's what he does right here. And once again, Pickens does a good job of just being able to track that ball and secure the catch, get both feet in before he went out of bounds. So right here, you got Pickens matched up on the outside again. He's lined up outside the numbers, and he kind of just runs a stutter go. The corner was playing off coverage, so he really didn't fall for that. The coverage really was tight, and it really wasn't much separation. But once again, like I said, when you got a receiver like Pickens, man, you can just throw that thing up, and he'll adjust and do what he has to do necessary to be able to come down with the ball. But I want to show y'all one thing, too, and this is another teaching moment for my young receiver. So notice that. So if you remember early on in this clip, when they was playing against the Jets, that corner had made a nice play on Pickens. Whenever he seen Pickens' arms go up for the ball, he was able to get his hands in there, and that's why that pass initially was deflected, right? So let me show you this right here. So that was a teaching moment for the DBs to be able to look for those receiver hands. Now, from the receivers, this is a teaching moment. So notice how this time Pickens waits until the ball literally gets right there before he finally shows or give the DB an indication that the ball is coming. Like, notice, because the DB wasn't able to get his head back to the quarterback, so he doesn't know. So he's basically just trying to read Pickens' arms, and as soon as Pickens' arms go up, try to get his hands in there to be able to dislodge the ball. But right here, Pickens does a good job at, from one, being able to track that ball and having the ball skills to be able to do that, but then also being able to get that catch at the last moment while once again maintaining his feet inbounds to stay in bounds. But that's another one of his benefits too, man, just being able to make those catches in those little tight windows, just like when you up against the sideline, or just like whenever you in the red area, you know, when you have to maneuver in those tight spaces, and he's very good at that. But like I said, man, it's been the same story of everything, of every clip we've seen, with it just really being vertical routes down the field and him just being able to make plays over the DBs. So right here on this play, so one of the things that you have to look at too, whenever we're kind of analyzing a receiver, is kind of just looking at the guys that he's being able to make these plays on. Are they top cover guys? Because at the end of the day, a lot of things comes down to matchups. So right here, you see that he's matched up on Denzel Ward, who is one of the better corners and cover corners in the NFL. If you're familiar with the Cleveland Browns defense, you know they run a lot of man coverage. So in order for you to run a lot of man coverage, you have to have faith on your corners on the outside. So right here, you have him matched up on the outside, one-on-one with Denzel Ward. And the separation wasn't much. Honestly, Denzel Ward was right there. I think the biggest thing that kind of hurt Denzel Ward was not being able to get his head around to locate the ball. And obviously, you see it was a little hand fighting there between him and between Ward and Pickens. You look at it, Ward is kind of holding Pickens as well, grabbing hold to Pickens' arm. So I don't necessarily. At first, I was like, man, that was a push off. But I'm looking at the hand fighting between those two. They're both actively engaging. If you see Ward's right arm, it was kind of pressed up against Pickens' arm. So honestly, man, at the end of the day, it was him kind of really just trying to be able to create the separation and get him up off of him. So he kind of gave like a little slight push off right here, but he didn't fully extend the arm. So if a lot of times, if you don't fully extend the arms, the referees might not call it. So he just does a good job at being able to kind of, cheat within the rules and, be able to make a catch. Once again, like I said, when you have a guy like Pickens, all you have to do is just kind of put the ball up there, and he's going to be able to adjust necessary to be able to come up with the ball. Right here on this play, man, we see something a little different, man. They run a wide receiver screen. We used to seeing him running down the field for a 9 route or for a fade route and just, making a difficult catch. So they mix it up a little bit. But you see number 15 do a good job at kind of just getting in the way of number 21, who was the initial defender. And then he does another good job at just being able to get the next defender on the next level. And Pickens just, pretty much just, just gets the ball, get upfield, and just, be able to evade that tackle right there. You had the guy coming over the top trying to make a shoestring swing tackle. He did a good job of just kind of being able to hop out of that, but not only being able to hop out of it, also maintaining his balance for an easy walk-in touchdown. So right here, man, we go back to the bread and butter. So you got a one-on-one matchup on the outside with him and McDuffie. Once again, like I said, when we're looking at receivers and a lot of times the measuring stick we're looking at is to see the competition that you're doing that against. Can you do that against the top level corners? And obviously one of my favorite corners, if you guys don't know, is Trent McDuffie. I love Trent McDuffie's game, from his cover skills to his skills in the in run fits, being able to come downhill and make tackles. Once again, right here, he played pretty good coverage. Pickens looked like he kind of had him beat in terms of a leverage standpoint. But you see McDuffie does a good job at kind of trying to squeeze him towards the sideline. Once again, where you got a quarterback that has, good ball placement such as Russell Wilson, then and like I said, also too, just kind of look at the size difference in height. You kind of can see that Pickens has a size advantage over him. So that tells you how, the size that Pickens has. So like I said, when you got a receiver that's as long as Pickens is, the catch radius becomes so much longer and wider. So you can so even if the coverage is so much more tight, you can still be able to put the ball in certain windows, and he'll have an opportunity to be able to go up and make a play like how he did right here. And also he did another good job at being able to, wait to the last minute. Well, honestly, I will say, in terms of, getting his hands to not alert McDuffie, but McDuffie was actually able, like I said, once again, an elite corner. He was actually able to get his head around and to locate the ball. So he didn't necessarily have to worry about McDuffie trying to play through his hands, because McDuffie obviously was going to try to play the ball in the air. And like I said, just a good pass from Russell Wilson, and just a good catch from Pickens. Like I said, man, it's kind of been the embodiment of everything I've seen watching him, has kind of just been things deep down the field, making tough physical catches. The separation isn't just like the best separation that you will see. And granted, in the NFL, the separation doesn't become as broad as it was at the collegiate level. Things become a little bit more tighter just because the skill level gap starts to minimize. It starts to kind of close. And then the IQ of the players to be able to know things like that, like McDuffie, like just knowing that, I'm going to try to squeeze him and funnel him towards the sideline. You know what I mean? You might not have corners that you're going up against in college that actually knows those type of techniques at the beginning. But like I said, man, I like what he brings to the Cowboys. It brings some of the pressure off of CD Lamb. Obviously, we know CD is a dog, but CD had to face a lot of double teams because he was the primary target, and the Cowboys just never really had a consistent option outside of him, especially this year, I would say more so. So bringing Pickens in, it takes away from that, because it's like, okay, if you want to double team CD, that's cool. We're gonna do exactly what we seen Pickens doing in Pittsburgh is the same thing we're going to utilize him for the Cowboys. So y'all going to have to try to adjust y'all coverages unless y'all want to lose the game to Pickens. So I like him bringing that addition in, and I just like the energy. He's a high energy player. Now he has maturity aspects he got to get better at. It's a couple plays throughout the season. Obviously the play where he should have ran out of bounds on that one play. Then there was another play in the game against I believe was it the Cleveland Browns, when he made a catch and then he threw the ball on the defender. And it's just like, bro, you can't do stuff like that. Anything that hurts the team, you can't necessarily do. So it gets to the point to where you're hurting the team more than you're helping the team. That's a problem. So I hope that he cleared those type of things up. And if he cleared those type of things up, man, this kid has a bright future in the NFL and with the Dallas Cowboys as well. But, man, if you guys did enjoy this video, do me a big favor, man. Smash that thumbs up button. Also, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. When you subscribe, make sure that you got that notification bell turned on. That way you be updated every time I upload, man, because as you can see, I'm uploading every day, so you don't want to miss a video. And I'll see y'all in the next video.